7:05, and we'd like to thank all of our guests who have joined us this evening. We know that your time is very valuable. You could be anywhere else, but you've decided to spend your hour with us, and we're very thankful. I'd like to introduce myself in kicking off tonight's meeting. I'm Kimberly M. Starks, and I serve as an advisor to this wonderful group, Market 166 Kitchen and Grocery. I'd like to turn the meeting over before we get started as a way of making introductions to our wonderful board members and our other advisors before we get started with tonight's meeting. And again, tonight is meant for all of our guests this evening who have questions about the co-op to learn as much as you can, to soak in all of the information and education that we have to offer. So at this time, I am going to turn the meeting over to Jenna.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, and thanks to our advisors and thanks to our guests who are joining us today. We're really excited to have this our first big virtual event. So, you know, undoubtedly something will go wrong, but we're really happy you're here. We're hoping we can provide a lot of valuable information for you and hopefully get you more involved in Market 166. I'm Jenna McMillan-Friedman, and I'm the current chair of the Market 166 board. We've currently got 6 board members, and 5 of us are here tonight. One is not here, Darnita Henry, although she's an invaluable part of our board as well. So next, I'll turn it over to Pramil to introduce yourself real quick.
Hi, I'm Pramil Das, Vice Chair.
Mary Miller, Secretary.
Lori Green, Acting Treasurer.
Mandisha Thomas, Board Member.
Awesome. Thank you all. And then we've got 2 other advisors here tonight in addition to Kimberly. And so I'd love for them to share a little bit about kind of who they are, what their organizations are, and how we work with them, I guess. Fight it out for who goes first.
Go for it, Matthew.
Okay, great. All right, good evening, everybody. Hi, so my name, as mentioned, is Matthew Epperson. So I am the Executive Director with the Georgia Cooperative Development Center. So we're also advisors to this great organization, Market 166, Grocery and Kitchen. We've been working with them probably about 2 years, I would estimate, somewhere in that ballpark, providing some technical assistance, some connections to folks like Stuart Reid, who you'll be hearing from in a moment. We're a statewide 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our mission is to provide technical assistance to start up existing and converting cooperatives of all different shapes, sizes, and sectors across the state of Georgia. So we don't work just with grocery; we work with agriculture, other food organizations as well, value added, but also technology, all sorts of types of co-ops. And we try to help them from the initial phase of just ideation of whatever they're thinking about, all the way through moving toward the actual doors on stores and actually implementing their co-op business idea. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. And I'll pass it to Stuart.
Okay. Jenna, maybe you want to mute all for the background if you have that option.
I think that's what Kimberly's looking to do. I see her face of concentration.
In the process, she muted me. Okay. Yeah, that's all right. I'm back. I'm Stuart Reid. I'm the director of the Food Co-op Initiative. We're also a nonprofit co-op development center, but we do focus entirely on retail food co-op startups. And we work all over the country, which makes us kind of unique as a development center. Most of them are regional focus, but we focus instead on one core area of expertise. And I think that I probably got involved with your group about the same time Matthew did. We always try to share with each other when we were working with groups that we both have in common interest in. And we provide all of our services, a lot of them through the web, so that people can get at them wherever they need them. They're free. We do a lot of training events. We do we're co-hosting the Up and Coming conference that some of you have been to. So it's all of our work is just focused on helping people like you get a new food store open successfully.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we'll share just a little bit tonight about what Market 166 is and what this cooperative movement is all about up front. And then we're going to open up the floor to questions. And that's the real meat of this meeting. So I'll try to keep my introduction pretty brief. Wanted to pull up the co-op's website in the background here. Thank you for doing that, Kimberly. Just to point out a few different places where y'all can go to find more resources if you have further questions, or maybe want to take an action on something like volunteering, not to plug that too much, or anything else. Market 166 Grocery and Kitchen Cooperative really started as a movement in late 2017 with a community interest survey that was sent out on Facebook. And it was in response to what a lot of y'all here who are from East Point and Southwest Atlanta and the Tri-Cities are familiar with, that question of, why don't we have a Trader Joe's? How come we can't get an Aldi here? Why are our grocery options different than they are elsewhere, and how do we change it? So the founding members of Market 166 put out an interest survey and got over 300 responses saying that folks are really interested in doing this themselves as a homegrown initiative, a cooperative where you and me and your next door neighbor and everyone and live near can be an owner and really have a stake in that grocery store, have a say in what it sells, but also what it feels like when you walk in the door and what it stands for as an entity. And so ever since that time in late 2017, we've been working to make that a reality. And so as a cooperative, that means, we had to do some really basic stuff like getting incorporated with the state, but we also have to start an ownership drive where, we set up the mechanisms for all of you to really join us and buy a share in the store. And so that's something that can be done at the ownership tab on our website. And then a little bit of the story is on the About Market 166 tab where Kimberly just was. There's information here saying what it means to be an owner in the cooperative, which is really, you do get to vote in how Market 166 develops and in who's leading it. Each of us was elected. We didn't just decide, well, we did decide for ourselves that we wanted to be a part of this, but we also were elected and chosen by the community of owners. Once the store is profitable, there's a chance for getting dividends of the store's profits as an owner, special kind of ownership deals and discounts and things like that. But really the biggest thing is just that stake in the store and how it's run and what it is. Also on the website, on our About page, and we're planning to build this out more so that there's really a lot of kind of answers to the questions that we expect will be asked tonight. But information about our journey, our timeline, which is something we get a lot of questions. Everybody wants the store open tomorrow, us included, us most of all, maybe. But there's also, our mission statement and our vision and things on this page. And right now, that statement talks about creating a grocery store that stands for and supports the physical and the financial health of our community. Right now, something that the board's been involved with for 2020 is writing some impact statements and a full case statement that really flesh out what that means in more tangible ways and kind of lay out some more specific goals of what we're going to do in terms of food equity, in terms of sustainability, in terms of community. So that's all coming soon to the website. And of course, there's more here about what our vision actually looks like in terms of the physical space. We do plan to have a full service grocery store. You could do your one-stop shopping here at the Market 166 we envision. We also envision a strong grab and go deli type of component. And of course, the kitchen component where we hope to have a business incubator for food entrepreneurs in our community who need a leg up, whether it's in terms of space and equipment or whether it's in terms of kind of business and food advisory and how to get their company running, event space for hosting community events, especially those that are food related, since people gather so much over food and sharing of food, and really to just be an asset to the community. So I talked a lot. I think that was actually more than I intended to say in this introduction. So unless, Pramil, if you have anything to add to that intro, I think we can pass it back to Kim and kind of talk about how we're going to take questions and how the rest of tonight's going to go.
I just wanted to add, I think it's a very exciting opportunity for the community to have control of their own food system and to build it from the grassroots up, and getting the chance to support all the local farmers and growers around here, and being that linchpin for the Tri-Cities and Southwest Metro Atlanta area in terms of the food system.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Well, as we get started this evening in answering your questions, we just want for you to take this intimate time to ask any and all questions that you have. Please don't hold back. You can list your questions in the chat, and when you list your questions in the chat, I will be sure to announce that to everyone, and either our strategic advisors will answer the question or a member of the board will answer the question directly. So again, let's have a sharing evening with education about Market 166, and we're here to answer any questions that you have. Feel free to start in the chat and we'll take it from there. So let's get started. The first question that we have is, what does the 166 in Market 166 stand for? Now that question was answered in the chat, but Jenna, why don't we let you take it from here in answering why 166 in Market 166.
Yeah, we can tell the story of that a little bit. I had mentioned that we started out with this community interest survey on Facebook, and we were really shocked where, how far kind of respondents came from on that survey. Of course, this posted in, neighborhood Facebook groups, Community of East Point, Historic College Park Neighbors, groups like that. But what we found was that folks from as far out as, the 20 and 285 intersection on the west side were answering, folks down south of 285 were answering, kind of all through this like southwestern metro quadrant of Atlanta were answering that. And so what we really noticed was a through line of that was Langford Parkway or Route 166. And in the early days, we didn't want to limit this at all to say, oh, this is a Hapeville thing, or oh, this is an East Point thing, or Atlanta only. So we really liked that Route 166 goes through kind of all of those neighborhoods and areas that were responding to our survey, and we thought, what a great idea for our name.
Wonderful. Now, Mary, because you answered the question in the chat, is there anything that you'd like to add to what Jenna just explained?
Pretty much covered it.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So now we have another question. Does Market 166 see itself being a socially responsible partner to the neighboring communities? Example, not throwing out food, but donating it to local pantries, churches, etc. Pramil, please.
We're definitely interested in making sure we utilize food completely. Sustainability is a very important component to myself personally, as well as Market 166. And we would like to participate in not only donating the food, but also what people consider food waste is actually very valuable to farmers and can be turned back into valuable compost and the soil. And we want to keep all of that nutrients inside of the community. And help people to see how connected everything really becomes. So yes, that is definitely something we want to make sure of. And I know Mandisha's worked quite a bit on helping people to get food in the community, and food access and food equity is one of the hallmarks of our movement.
Wonderful. And we have more people who are joining us. So for those who are just coming into our meeting, I'm going to mute you, but we welcome you certainly to our evening of answering questions and learning more about Market 166. Just to bring you up to speed, we have made an introduction of our strategic advisors, our board of directors, and now we are in the portion of the meeting where we are answering questions. Our board members and our advisors are answering questions. So please, as you join in this evening, don't be shy. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat, and we are into a great discussion about Market 166 and in answering your questions. So jumping right back into it, people are excited about Market 166. So can someone from the board share the timeline for opening?
I can speak to that a little bit, and then maybe pass off to Stuart to share a little bit more about how cooperatives in general operate and how their timelines for opening usually look like. It's really hard to put dates around this because it all depends on how many owners we get signed up.
You might want to open up that graphic. That might be helpful while Ben is speaking.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
On the About Market 166 page, if you scroll down, I believe.
Oh, I'm already here. There we
Yeah.
go.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
That's a
there
great
we
point,
go.
Camille.
All right.
Perfect. So every kind of metric of success in the early days is all about the number of owners you get. And at 300 owners, which is our goal to tie it back to Market 166 for the end of this year, that's really when you can start getting serious about kind of taking the next steps as far as we're concerned. So we're still in the organizing stage. We've got 164 owners as of, I think, about 6 o'clock tonight. So, and that's happened in just over a year and a half. So we're really happy about that pace. And we're just pushing as hard as we can to get to 300 because that's where kind of we take all the next steps. And then as you can see on our About page, the next stages of development are outlined, and I'll pass off to Stuart to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, get myself unmuted. Yeah, it's the business process is kind of time consuming, and it is because it's a community-based organization, and it requires the involvement and investment of a lot of people. There's not one source of income or source of inspiration, it's all of you. And so the numbers are so significant because that is the support for the co-op. It represents, not in a way, it's almost a measure of how likely it will be to succeed, how many people are backing it and joining it and getting involved. So you get to a certain number, like 300 in your case, and then you can start getting involved in the more concrete business planning, doing the financial projections, thinking about how big the store should be, where you're going to look for the site, things like that, getting a formal business plan done. And when you drive to raise the money to open the store, that's the next major target along the line. Then you move forward. And how long does it take? It partly depends on how effectively you can engage people and how quickly. But there's just a certain amount of time involved, and usually it is a 3 to 5 year process, and in some cases longer, especially if you have trouble finding a good site. But the co-ops have been doing this for a long time, and it sounds like a terribly long time to have to wait, but believe me, it goes fairly quickly. And along the way, there's a lot of good that's happening as you're engaging community, you're building friendships, learning things. The co-op exists now. The storefront doesn't. But the co-op is already an asset to the community, and just don't lose sight of that.
And Matthew, I'm sure you have more to add to that. We'd love to hear from you as well.
Well, thank you. I was just going to jump in to, reaffirm what Stuart was saying about that timeline, and to maybe cast a little bit of a broader context about cooperative development generally, which is that, obviously the model we're used to is very much like driven by venture capital, and like that's not at all what we're doing here. This is community capital, so that takes time, and we're moving at the speed of trust. And so that's part of why these things do take that longer time period, right? Is because we're building, like, many hands making light work, everybody chipping in their little bit, and that's just not what we're used to. And so I think it's that we're asking for more patience, but basically we're going to create a better product that is going to last longer, and that's what the statistics show about creating new food co-ops, right? Is that they fail less and they last longer. And it's going to be something that we can pass on. There's a lot of intergenerational, blood, sweat, and tears really about food co-op development. And it's something we can really pass on to our children. So I think that's what draws in a lot of people to the process, because they can see that, that longer vision. Some people talk about, laying bricks versus building a cathedral, right? There's one way to see it, just like the one little bit, one brick at a time. But if you can see the cathedral, then it hopefully justifies the whole process.
I love the quote that you just, or the phrase, moving at the speed of trust. That's really great. And that's what this evening is all about. As we've been talking, we've had a number of people to enter our discussion this evening. So we welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So to bring you up to speed as to where we are during this discussion this evening, we're talking about Market 166 Co-op, and we're answering any and all of your questions. So we welcome you. We ask that you ask as many questions as you have. We want to make sure that you walk away informed and educated and excited about Market 166. So now that we've laid the groundwork, let's jump right back in. So want to take a moment to say that Joshua Sims made the comment that the name is awesome. He loves the name. So you've got his vote of approval. So moving on, we have a question. There have been a few membership goals. First was breaking 100 owners. What is the number needed to move forward and open doors? And I'll stop there before answering the second part to that question. Mandisha, you are a part of the board. Do you mind taking this question? May have her muted.
Oops, there we go.
Okay, there we go.
Well, Jenna and Perm probably have the hard stats on that, but I know that it has taken a twist because of COVID, and we have been working on a couple of grants, and we do have one in lieu now, and Lori probably can speak more to the grant that we're working on now, but we are moving forward. It's just that COVID has set us back on the timeline.
Yeah, as far as really opening doors, this graphic on our About page that is on the screen right now has us at needing about 1,000 owners before we really take that step. But yes, we had, kind of everything we've heard about, getting people excited about this and how to make it all seem manageable and approachable, and like to also be able to celebrate your progress on the way, recommends breaking into those small goals. And so that's kind of why we had, hey, let's hit 100. Right now we're running to 166 because that's our name. So we're really excited that just 2 more people will be there, and we have some cool ideas and plans of how to celebrate as we hit a lot of these milestones. Especially if we hit 300 at the end of this year, which is a goal that we set pre-COVID. And of course, we know, economically, it's a really rough time right now. And, you know, spending $100 on an ownership share for something that's going to happen in the future and, you know, isn't necessarily today you can walk in the door and, you know, show your membership card. That's a hard thing to ask. And we definitely appreciate and respect that. But we're also trying to find ways to make it seem really tangible now. We were super excited to partner with East Point Farmers Market on a mobile market back in July and kind of hit a different area of the community with some farmers and local artisans and take food there. And there's a lot more that I think we can do along the way before we have those brick and mortar doors open. And just to Mandisha's point about COVID in general, we're thinking, you know, brick and mortar is still part of the goal, but that may not be the whole goal anymore, as shopping in person is just, you know, a little bit of a scary proposition right now. You know, it's definitely on our minds to think about online ordering, to think about delivery, to think about all the other different ways that you can serve a goal of food equity in a community besides just having a store open.
Thank you for answering that. Now, we have another question in that same line of thought. What membership initiatives or drives are planned?
Could we have a little more detail on the question?
Well, I mean, we are pushing the social media aspect really, really hard. And we've had a couple of meetings with some outside advisors to talk about how we could really utilize social media platforms to push Market 166 out. And then I think it's Mary that's doing the scheduling for all the events. And it might be Mary and Lori working together to put a calendar of events together for us. Just existing events has been kind of hard because, again, of COVID. You don't want to keep saying COVID, but it really has kind of impacted what we're doing. And so much so that we have switched in our strategic plan to make the way that we want to move. And so we do want to get some more insight from owners before we make some final decisions about it. But I guess Lori and Mary know more about the calendar that we've been trying to put together with existing events to just tag along on.
Yeah, we're kind of transitioning our events from in person to online, which is why we have this as our first, you know, big event post-COVID. And we have our annual owners meeting coming up in a few weeks. So that's a big event that we're doing. And then from there, we'll go into the fall and we'll see what happens. Last year, we did quite a few different farmers markets. We were at the tree lighting in East Point. We did the community trick-or-treating in Hateville. We were at one of the Christmas markets, talking to owners and things like that. So hopefully, if you know everything goes as planned, we'll be at some of those events this year. If not, we'll be working on things that we're going to do online to supplement that.
Another idea we had for ownership was to help people with the cost is to give them a gift certificate to a local business. So we're doing two things at one time. We're supporting a local business in this time of the pandemic, as well as promoting ownership. And we also want to have the technology to do a pay it forward or an ownership gift, where people who see people have, like, I can picture like a sliding scale where someone might be comfortable with maybe $50 or $80, and then somebody else can chip in the community who does have more disposable income to support that owner and becoming an owner and work through that. So we do have a couple different ideas. Just have to figure out the technicality of how all of that would come to fruition.
Yeah,
No,
our local business gift card for owners was one of the cool ideas planned for different ownership goals that I alluded to and didn't actually say. So cat's out of the bag, but that'll be fun in the future.
I know one of the things that we had talked about is a lot of food is being given away, like free food, but a lot of people that really need the food don't have cars, you know, because of COVID, you can't just walk them. So meeting that need, becoming a bridge where we can actually go to those areas where it's a lot of apartment buildings, whatever, have the food available like a mobile market of some type. We had even tossed around, I'm talking about events coming up, we don't know. But we had tossed around maybe going to Washington Road. There's a lot of apartments there. Not only, you know, providing like a mobile market, but also interacting with the businesses in the area, see if they want to offer free haircuts, whatever, and giving them food samples. So maybe they haven't tasted hummus or something like that, giving them some little recipes. And we've done that at the East Point Farmers Market as well. But you know, like Mary says, COVID kind of has put that, you know, on a hold. And we just have to think of a creative way to meet the needs of people who, you know, are dealing with food insecurities.
And I'd also like to add, as we transition to our next question, that Mandisha Thomas, our board member, has mentioned that Market 166 also plans to partner with Gooder in recycling perishable foods. So having said that, moving on to our next question, as a backyard gardener, would I be able to trade or sell food at Market 166?
I already answered that one in the chat, but I'll just expand on that a little bit. And
okay.
One of our primary goals is to partner with local farmers. So that would be something we would be interested in. I like the idea of trading, although that's not something we've discussed. That might be an option in the future.
Okay.
Yeah,
You want to add to that, Jenna?
Sure, just a bit. In advance of opening and, you know, really selling products and everything at this point, Mandisha has been doing a lot of work to prepare what our vendor policies will look like. And there is a big focus on local and a big focus on sustainability in the draft policies that we're looking at. And she's talked with folks at Sevananda over in Little Five Points, who of course have been running a successful co-op for decades now, to just get an idea of what their vendor policies look like and get us started on the right foot. So for folks who are interested in selling products at the cooperative eventually, we're keeping a running list, and you can send your contact info to info@market166.com, and we'll kind of keep you on that list and keep you updated as things progress. And you know, as we get back to events, there may be potential there. And then of course, when, you know, we're fully up and running.
Now, before we move on, we did have just a few people to join us. I definitely wanted to take a moment to acknowledge you. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we will make sure that we get them answered this evening. Now, Pramil, this question is for you. You and I have talked about this. What are the specific locations for the market that is on your short list?
So we took the step this year of doing a preliminary feasibility study, and we gave the company who's outside of the area, so less biased, a map, and they did the research. The map was pretty encompassing of Southwest Atlanta and the Tri-Cities. And without us hedging them on, they came and told us that a really good spot would be East Point, close to the MARTA station. So that is from a preliminary study, just focusing on what they could find online about the area. Once we get to the 300, we're going to do a full feasibility, which will be much more robust. And then once we get another green light, and Matthew always talks to us about, you need to stop and see if you have a green light before you proceed. And once we get that green light, the pro forma and the location will be focused on at about 500 owners. And I think that's, once we announce an official location, I think that's when the abstract concept will become reality. And that can happen as fast as we can get to 500. The more the merrier, the faster, what did you call it? The speed of trust, Matthew? So that's exciting for us. But that was a really big goal that we had for 2020, is to get some hard, concrete data instead of just, thinking about and planning and dreaming. Like, we do need data to support this business to become sustainable. And that's what the preliminary feasibility gave us. And they agreed with the size that we had conceived of. And so everything is falling into place, and it just gets us more excited.
Now, Matthew, would like to hear from you, and from there, board members, please chime in. Will Market 66 carry national brands primarily? Do co-ops do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, so this is definitely one of those questions that, of course, membership will be part of that conversation, right? So, us sitting back from more of an advisor's seat, we can certainly observe, like, okay, we can see trends, and certainly within like the natural foods grocery world that I particularly had my background in. I didn't mention that in my introduction, but I used to work in the other, I mean, I guess it's fair to say the other food co-op in Georgia, Daily Groceries Co-op in Athens, Georgia. We primarily purchased from United Natural Foods, so we did carry a lot of those bigger national organic brands that you might recognize, in your more organic section. But that said, there's not like any rules about that, right? Like, that's not how it has to be. And at some of our initial meetings, I tried to emphasize that with Market 166, that like, just because we see that many natural foods co-ops do that, we don't necessarily say that's the way it has to be. We want to reflect local. We want to reflect that democratic member control. We want to reflect the price points that make sense for the community. And also, one of the things that we always tried to practice in my food co-op was to try to have multiple price points. That's kind of the way that we approached the fact that we know that, in any different categories of food, right, you can have 3 different, price tiers of peanut butter, right, because they might have different qualities. One might be more local and more expensive. One might be more of a national, like a Jif kind of brand, and have a lower price point that maybe certain people recognize and feel comforted that it's there, right? So it's a kind of a complex question, like what's going to be on the shelf, especially because we are in this very theoretical space right now. But to try to emphasize that, like, it has been done. National brands have been involved in many grocery co-ops. It can be, if that's what this community wants.
Wonderful. Stuart, as an advisor, speaking generally about co-ops, is there anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that it's the actual day-to-day decisions about what goes on the shelf will be probably the responsibility of the general manager once that person is hired. The board's responsibility, leading up to that, is to hear the community, to understand what are the needs that the co-op can fulfill for the community. And then that becomes the policy that guides the general manager in making those decisions. But, it's not, in order to make sure that the co-op is viable, not everything that everybody wants can always be done. It has to be a balance between what can be financially effective and meet those needs. And that's basically what you're paying a general manager to tweak that out. It's not an easy job.
Now, I have a follow-up question for you both. Will there be, and this is for the board as well, you all can speak to this, of course, but speaking generally from knowledge of your co-op experience, Matthew and Stuart, will there be a focus on organic food items or special dietary products? Do you find that typically in co-ops?
Typically, but every co-op is different. We've got co-ops organizing in communities now that are primarily putting on the shelf what you would see at most other supermarkets. They're not natural and organic focused at all. They may still give preference to local producers and farmers, but what's typically a more expensive organic natural product mix. So there's anything is possible. It's what best meets your needs, and then can you do that in a way where the co-op can be financially successful. So.
Matthew, is there anything
Yep.
that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, just to quickly, I know we're short on time, but just to say that the market in general is really moving toward fresh food in all categories. It seems like grab and go, fresh meats, fresh produce. I think that that's a way to be competitive in this market and to be a real differentiator is to be in that fresh space, so people feel like they're really getting nourished when they come to your co-op. So I'm imagining that probably won't change even amid the COVID environment. We're certainly seeing some things like bulk foods, for example, are really on the downtrend. I mean, they were kind of downtrending anyway in some ways, unfortunately. But with COVID really accelerated that. But I think the focus on fresh will remain.
Okay,
And
wonderful.
I'll be quick, but I'll add just a couple of things that what we've heard from our community so far and what we've seen in our preliminary feasibility study. The need for local and for fresh and for some of these special dietary foods and things like that are what we've heard a lot of from our owners and from the larger community. That's kind of what Southwest Atlanta and Tri-Cities is lacking right now. We do and I mean, East Point is really special in terms of all the amazing urban farms that are here and are really close by. So we want to honor that. But at the same time, we understand that local and that organic all come at a cost. So the two other things I'll say there are that we're in the works to get set up with Georgia Organics or Georgia Grown in terms of getting a double SNAP and double EBT account so that we can do some things towards affordability and making this cooperative really accessible for everyone. And then also in terms of what Stuart said about how some co-ops are opening up and are really doing big brands and, Oreos or, things that you'll see kind of at any grocery store. In our preliminary feasibility study, it pointed out that something that might really be a differentiator for us is to have the organic, yes, but to also have that clean, conventional food. So that's things like, potato chips, but they don't have the hydrogenated oils in them, or, the healthy Oreos, and things like that are still a little harder to get here and are a little bit of the better choice, but still, something that a lot of people want.
Certainly enjoying this discussion, and we have about 13 minutes left. So we want to make sure that we answer everyone's questions, but are still respectful of your time. So I'd like to pose this question to our board member, Lori Green. After the initial $100 investment from 300 members, would there be an annual membership fee?
Well, we decided that once they pay their $100, that's their membership. So it won't be like Sam's, am I right? Won't be like Sam's or BJ's where you have to do every year. And it will be for the family, whoever's currently living in that household.
Wonderful. Now, I still want to acknowledge those who have joined us. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are answering questions at this time, learning as much as we can about Market 166. If you have any questions that you'd like to have answered, please feel free to drop those questions in the chat, and we are going to make sure that we get your questions answered. So this question it seems like it is for the advisors. What are some of the decisions members typically democratically participate in the most across the different stages of the timeline from your experience?
Yeah, I actually authored that question for Stuart because I wanted to hear his thoughts.
Okay. So if you want to speak to that, yes.
Yeah, consumer co-ops are a little different from a lot of other kinds of co-ops in that they have so many member owners and a lot of voices. And the board has been the biggest, most important decision that you as owners make is electing the board. The board is then delegated with the responsibility to represent your interests. And because some of the decisions that have to be made are pretty complex, and the learning curve to understand the implications of those decisions is hard to put out through a whole large organization of hundreds of members. So the board will collect feedback perhaps without necessarily asking for a direct vote on a lot of things. It's the board's responsibility and legally, as well as, you know, the way we're structured, to make most of those. Now, critical decisions about the co-op may often go to the owners for a vote. For example, if you've been talking all along about we're going to locate in this area and a site comes up that isn't in that area, that might be something you take to the membership for a direct vote to say, are you willing to make that kind of change or not? Certainly a decision about whether to fold or to merge with another organization or anything like that, anything that would involve the money that you as owners have invested in the business should go to the full board. And it's usually, or not full ownership, not just board. It's usually dictated in the bylaws of the organization what the limits of the authority of the board are and where owners have a direct say. But it's sort of an indirect democracy. It's functional that way. There are those who would argue that, you know, it would be nice if the owners had a direct say in things, but it's very difficult to get, you know, you could actually be divisive, because if you've got a large number of people and you've got a very vocal minority, they can drive that discussion in a way that may not even be healthy for the co-op. So, well, hard question to answer in a way, because I think we'd like to think of ourselves as being a little more directly democratic than that. But I think there's other ways in decision making and feedback loops. So that's about the best I can answer that.
And that was a good answer. Thank you so much, Stuart. At this time, I'd just like to say on behalf of the board and our advisors, thank you for everyone who has tuned in this evening. And we have so many questions, and we're going to make sure that we answer all of these questions that you have this evening. We are recording, and so for those who have a hard stop at 8 p.m., no worries. We'll make sure that we share this video, but we encourage for those who are able to stay, please stay. We have a lot of information sharing. We still have a lot of questions that we have to get through. So we want for you to feel comfortable. We're not rushed. But we do respect your time. So with that being said, we're going to keep on going, and we welcome those who have joined us. We're answering questions or we're taking questions in the chat to be answered during this discussion. So for those who just joined, please feel free to leave your questions in the chat. So we're going to turn the questioning over to Mandisha Thomas, taking a moment to congratulate her on winning State District 65, so she is state representative elect. So this question is fitting for her. So Representative Thomas elect, does City Council support Market 166? Uh-oh, we may have lost Mandisha. Okay, so we're going to turn it over to Jenna for, oh, okay, there we go. Hi.
Yes, definitely. Mayor and council both out of East Point does support Market 166, and that is so prevalent to have the elected officials to back us in the movement, especially when it comes to development of a brick and mortar building. So yes, they do.
Wonderful. All right, and I'm sure Jenna, you have.
Jenna, do you want to add to that?
Yes.
I was just going to chime in since you were muted at first, but I will say that we've also met with the leadership in City of College Park and City of Hapeville, and then have reached out to the neighborhood planning units in Atlanta that kind of surround the Tri-Cities area. And our meetings with College Park and Hapeville were super encouraging as well. And kind of all of the Tri-Cities reiterated that they can work together really well on these things. You know, if our eventual site was to be close to a boundary between the cities or things like that, everybody really seems to have the appetite for a cooperative grocery store like Market 166. So we've been very encouraged by that.
Wonderful. And it seems like there's a lot of excitement about Market 166 coming to fruition. I see that your hand is raised, Matthew, so I'm I'll pause here because I know that you have something that you'd like to add.
Oh, actually, that was from earlier.
Oh,
I
okay,
raised
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that you were
Thank you.
acknowledged. Yes.
Appreciate it.
So again, there's a lot of excitement around Market 166, the fruition of this market. So do you plan to post on multiple neighborhood association pages? We have someone here tonight who has gotten 5 to 8 people to join.
Keith is a huge fan. I think that was him that said that.
Yes.
No? We appreciate all of it.
Thanks, Noel, as well, a couple other people.
But to answer the question,
Yes.
we do try to cover the neighborhood Facebook groups as much as possible. There's 6 of us right now on the board. We're in the process of kind of trying to form some committees and things like that to do kind of broader community management and outreach there. So we're covering as many neighborhood groups as we can, but it's definitely not perfect. We don't have complete coverage. And so for anyone who's an owner or a fan of the co-op, we would love for you to share as well. Anything that we post, we encourage you to kind of share to others, groups that you're in, friends, neighbors, and kind of tell them about it and send them our way if they have questions.
Wonderful. Now, in addition to us having the discussion around questions, there is a robust conversation that's happening in the chat. So for those of you who are guests tonight, I do encourage you to take a look at the chat because there's really good information here as well that you may want to check out. So let's see, moving on. Okay. How do dividends work? Will we get them? How much would we be getting? Before the board answers, I'd like to throw it back to our advisors, Matthew and Stuart, speaking generally about co-ops and how it works. Matthew, why don't you kick us off in answering that question?
Right. I'm happy to. Thank you for that opportunity. So yeah, this is a really distinctly co-op concept, the concept of the patronage dividend. And it really comes back to that word patronage. So like that's usage, right? So like once this is a grocery store, how much are people really using their store ends up determining how much of the patronage dividend ends up going back to them. So how do dividends work? Basically, we operate the store, we have a certain amount of sales to members versus non-members. We figure out if we end up having the money at the end of the year. The board then kind of looks at the financials, makes a call one way or the other about like, did we generate a sufficient profit to actually do a distribution? And that it really will return something that is meaningful to members to do that. I can just quickly share that at my grocery co-op, we went many years we did have profit, but it wasn't enough of a profit that the distribution would end up being significant enough to actually make it more than like typically $5 per member. So we wanted to make sure like we're going to save it for a really good year, right? That what you're getting back is substantial enough that you feel like, okay, I feel like something's coming back to me, right? And typically it gets a little more complicated with IRS rules because there's some amount of it that is retained, some of it is held by the co-op, some of it goes back as cash. We won't go into all the rules about that, but suffice to say that it gets kind of complicated. You might not seeing all of what is actually in your name that is held by the co-op. But the big takeaway is that the more you use the co-op, the more that patronage dividend comes back to you. It's your piece of the pie at the end of the year, assuming the board deems that like that pie is sufficient to cut it up to each of the members, and whoever shop more would get more of the dividend versus whoever shop less.
That's a great answer. Thank you for that, Matthew. Stuart, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Just a little bit. I think this helps point out that the reason you are investing in a co-op, that you're trying to start a co-op, isn't to make money. It's because you need a grocery store, and that is your biggest return on your investment. If you get money back from patronage rebates, it's probably not going to be huge, but there are lots of other benefits to owners. Most co-ops will have promotional events and discounts days and things like that that'll more than make up for what you've invested. But you know, if you're thinking of this as a way to invest your money to get rich, it ain't gonna happen.
Great, thank you for that. And we encourage everyone to stay. We've hit our 8 o'clock mark, but we are going to answer all of the questions that you have. For those of you who do have a hard stop at 8 o'clock, we will have a recording of tonight's session, but we will go ahead and forge on. And thank you all again for joining us this evening. You could be anywhere, but you're here with us, and we thank you for it. So jumping back into the question, and this again is for Matthew and Stuart, when it comes to time to make decisions, how are we going to create a consensus with 300 people wanting to voice their opinion? And this is open for the board, but if our advisors could start us off as to how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I would jump in to say that I guess somebody's on echo, I think.
Okay.
Stuart really laid out that really well initially about his comments about indirect democracy. So a lot of times, more consensus driven practices are more common and more like worker co-ops, where like the membership is a lot smaller. So there's fewer voices and it becomes more practical to try to seek a full consensus. So a lot of times with representative democracy, including in our food co-ops, we are typically doing more of a majority kind of decision when it comes to those bigger picture decisions, like Stuart was saying, should we merge, should we close, should we locate here versus here? So we do our best to try to lay out the information, get folks rallied around whatever makes the most sense for the co-op. We've got enough green lights, like Herm was saying earlier. Once those are organized, then we are trying to seek the feedback as much as we can, but the voting typically, that's the more the formality of democracy is the voting aspect, which is less common. Really, it's the ongoing feedback of members that ends up kind of shaping the co-op.
Okay. Board members, is there anyone on the board who would like to add in answering that question?
I think you might be able to help us answer that question a little bit. Part of what Kimberly has done as an advisor to the co-op is help analyze a lot of the data that came in with that initial community interest survey, and looking at, do people here care about local food? Do people here care about, transportation to and from a co-op, or like proximity to the co-op? And she's also helped us lay out a plan for some surveys and some polls that will help gather owner input along the way. And I don't know if there's more you want to share there.
Sure. So as it relates to the co-op, we definitely want to make sure that there is community buy-in. And with that, that means that we are catering to the community's needs and being responsive to what people in the community want, so that they make Market 166 the first stop and not the last stop. So there was a lot of information that was gleaned from the survey. However, the survey was conducted in 2017. And of course, since then, a lot has changed, right? We've had COVID, and in this post-COVID environment, our shopping habits quite naturally will change. And so this conversation tonight, the surveys that will come out as a result of the analysis, the polls that you may see online, and this discussion will help to guide Market 166 for the future and the years to come. So in answering that, and thank you, Jenna, for allowing me to take the time to talk a little bit about the surveying and where we are right now in the process. So I'd like to pose this question for Mary, wanting to make sure that everyone on the board has an opportunity to have their say. Does the majority of your members, board members, live in the community or close proximity to the proposed store?
Yes, we all live in the Tri-Cities area at this time.
Okay.
So we're all really invested in the community and getting the people what they need, because we're those people.
Wonderful. Now someone says, wait, the store may not be in East Point. Was there ever a time where there was an assumption that Market 166 would be in East Point? And Jenna, if you could answer that.
Sure. Yeah. I think some of the initial surveys began in East Point Facebook groups. And from the beginning, the core of our member ownership has been in East Point. It remains that way today. The biggest percentage of our owners from any city are from East Point. And that's why part of why we were so excited that our preliminary feasibility study showed that smack dab in the middle of East Point is the best place for this co-op. And so we look forward to taking the next step kind of once we get to the full feasibility study and doubling down on that and finding out, next year or whenever it is that we hit that milestone and are able to do the full feasibility study, we'll be really excited to know, if that confirms East Point again, and then kind of it's full steam ahead. As we mentioned, great relationships with the city government there, and that would just be really exciting for all of us if that's where we go in the end.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So going back to our strategic advisors and answering the general question of co-ops and how they operate, Matthew and Stuart, is there a limit to how many shares one person is allowed to own? Stuart, if you could start us off in answering that question.
That you can only own one voting share. That's what the primary principle of co-ops: one member, one vote. That's how democracy within the co-op is maintained. You can't buy extra shares and have extra votes and have more control. However, it is possible if the co-op non-voting shares, and those are usually part of a capital campaign that comes farther down the road, where when the co-op is raising money for the big expenses of finishing a building, buying equipment and fixtures, things like that. And those are investment shares to the extent that they would pay a dividend, a few percent. It's not speculative. It's just a way for you to invest in the co-op, get a little bit of return on that, and help get it off the ground. So that's a different kind of share. It does not include any voting privileges on its own. It's a way of raising capital. And some co-ops, it's fairly rare, but some co-ops actually have an allowance for buying more than one ownership share, but the additional shares are non-voting regardless. So
okay,
it depends partly on how you're set up.
Okay. Matthew, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, well, I was just going to jump in to make that last point that Stuart was making about sometimes you could, of course, have more common stock that you purchase, but then it becomes more of a charitable act. And ultimately, we're really not aiming toward being a charitable act, really. And we're really tailoring this toward usage. And the people who are the buyers of those common stocks are the ones who are going to use the store. So we kind of have to flip the thinking of, typically people think in terms of donations, right, when they're doing these things, but really this is buying a piece of stock in a business. It has a social purpose. We are doing good in the community, but we are also running a business. So we just have to keep that in mind.
Thank you for that. And Stuart and Matthew, another question for you, speaking generally about co-ops, is there a way to withdraw membership if the store doesn't end up in the city that we live in? And this also is for the board, but we'll start with our advisors.
Yeah, I mean, in almost all co-ops, you can withdraw your membership and ask for your investment back. In startup co-ops, they sometimes have policies that restrict how long you have to keep that investment in, or whether it can be returned based on certain conditions or not. But the bottom line is that in most cases, if you have a valid reason for requesting to withdraw your membership, it's not hard to do.
Matthew,
that is how our bylaws are written. People are able to do that, but I welcome anybody who has a concern about that to reach out to us and speak individually. We're happy to kind of share more context or answer any questions if there's kind of concern around things.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, yes, that's possible.
I just wanted to also add, we also have to make sure that do we have a co-op that's going to be sustainable and here for many, many years, or we're going to have a co-op just to say we have a grocery store and then watch it fail. So our goal is not to have a store fail. So we do have to do due diligence and look at all the data from the feasibility study to determine what is going to be the most sustainable business-wise for the store. So that is a component we have to consider.
Wonderful.
Kimberly, I saw people are also asking on this idea of how much you can invest in the co-op, the possibility of gift memberships. And yes, absolutely. You can buy a membership for somebody else. Some co-ops even set up what they call scholarship funds, where you can make it, it's basically a donation, but it allows the co-op to help reduce the cost of a membership for somebody that can't afford it.
Thank you for that. And rolling up just a few of the questions here for some of our guests tonight who have joined at a later time, if we can take a step back to explain board members what the benefits are of being an owner, where the profits go, and is the market operating to make a profit or other? And Jenna, if you don't mind responding to that question.
Sure. I was going to pass off to Pramil, actually. I've been talking a lot, and that wasn't my goal tonight.
It looks like Pramil is passing it back to you.
Go ahead, Jenna. It's fine.
How could you? Gosh, now I have forgotten the question. Our goal definitely is to turn a profit and run a successful business. In the end of the day, you know, that's part of what Pramil was saying about doing our due diligence. That preliminary feasibility study told us a size of a store that they estimate we could be in order to generate a certain dollar amount per year. So that's absolutely part of our plan. But in conjunction with that, we have this whole mission of food equity. You know, there's a lot of folks here in our community who struggle to access food, to access good, healthy food that, you know, lets us live healthy lives. So those two missions are hand in hand. And I think at times they may be in tension with each other because, as we talked about, local food, organic food, not all of that is cheap. But we're really committed to finding a way to do that. And Kimberly, can you remind me the first part of the question?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
The first part of the question is the benefit of being an owner. Where do the profits go?
Sure. The benefits of being an owner, the biggest thing right now is that stake in your community and the ability to vote. So this year at our annual owners meeting, which is coming up on September 19th, the biggest thing to vote on is 2 potential new board members. I think both of whom are here tonight, or at least were at one point, Clark Hill and Keisha Chapman. And there's more about both of them on our website. You can read kind of their statement about why they want to get involved and decide for yourself if you think, you know, yes, that's who I want leading this endeavor, you know, for our community. Later on, we also envision discount days, you know, special kind of discounts and access to our community and event space, the dividends in profitable years that Matthew and Stuart both spoke about, and kind of a lot there, a $75 coupon when we open. All of that is listed on our ownership page, and you can read a little more there. And of course, we're also happy to speak to that. But the biggest thing that we can say is just you own a piece of your community, and you have a say in what that looks like now and in the future.
Thank you for that. And the last question of the evening, in answering all questions, where the question is related to benchmarking. Now, there are national chains out there that people recognize. Is there a comparison that can be made on a national level that we can benchmark against Market 166? And Matthew, if you could start us off there.
Oh, I was going to defer that one to Stuart, actually.
Okay, Stuart, by all means.
There is an incredible database of co-op performance metrics that was created probably starting some 15, 20 years ago that now includes over 100 food co-ops, and it's their complete financial performance information, and it's used by most of the professional consultants that do financial projections for startups. So while our numbers are not the same as the supermarket industry or even the natural food industry, we have our own data. But it's really important that that data be used appropriately in doing your planning, but it is there.
Wonderful. Well, before we take off, are there any parting words from our strategic advisors, our board members? We've had a robust discussion. We've gone over about 15 minutes, but this has been a very meaningful discussion. And to our guests, we thank you again for joining us this evening. Any parting words from our board or our strategic advisors?
I know we just want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us this evening. I know that it's Monday, and you know, we really appreciate your dedication to this project, and we look forward to seeing you guys once the store is open.
Absolutely. It's so nice for us to see all of you. You know, we see all the other board members, we see our advisors on a regular basis, but to see the faces of people in our community that maybe, you know, we send a message to on Facebook or something like that, to see you here tonight, to hear your questions, it's really great. And we're not here to shy away from the hard questions. You know, let us know if there's things you think we can be doing better. Get involved, better yet. You know, we want you to be a part of this. If you have different opinions, if you have the same opinions, either way, please join us. You know, this is yours, this is mine, this is all of ours. And, you know, we're just grateful to everyone who's engaging with it. And, yeah, just thanks for your time, and so much thank you to Kimberly and Matthew and Stuart, and to my fellow board members also for your time tonight.
Well, thank you.
I was going to say
so
the
much.
same thing. Oh, go ahead, Kim.
No, go right ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the same thing. It was good seeing so many people attending. It's a movement, even though it's, you know, a co-op, but everybody has to pitch in. We've been working hard, and, you know, Mary has to go to work, Perm, Jenna, you know, but we're putting the time in to make it happen for East Point, to make sure that we're addressing the food insecurity. So we need help with a lot of stuff. Feel free to contact us. We've participated, I think, Perms with Food Alliance. What is it, Food Well Alliance? And, you know, we're all part of different organizations. We're all communicating with different parts of the East Point, or the Tri-Cities community is, you know, what we think of it as. And we would love to have you guys help out with whatever, give us some ideas, some feedback. You know, this is a movement. So thanks for coming.
I'm just really impressed with all of you. You ask great questions, you've got great enthusiasm, and I'm looking forward to following this project along. And Kimberly, you did an exceptional job of facilitating today. Thank you.
Yes, you did.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Well, I think, Lori, you said it best. This is the call to action for our guest this evening. Tell a friend. Tell a friend that you attended tonight, that you learned more walking away than you did coming in. Please like, share, and follow all of Market 166 social media pages. Get involved, ask additional questions, and share this commentary with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family. We encourage participation. So we thank you for spending your time with us tonight. If you have any additional questions, please don't be shy. Please feel free to reach out to the board members. They have the answers. So thank you again for joining us this evening, and we wish you a good night.